Hello, I'm Finlay and you're watching the Run PB YouTube channel. In this episode we are going to be talking through the brand new Saucony Hurricane 24. Now before we go any further, some of you might be wondering why I'm pronouncing the brand Saucony, because you might have heard others say Saucony or Saucony. Without going into all the history, the correct way to pronounce this American running brand is Saucony. It is almost best to think of it as three words, so sock, ni. Now, the Hurricane have been around for a while, as you might have gathered, with these being on their 24th edition. However, these are completely different to any Hurricane that has come before. In this episode, we are going to talk through the tech, how they feel to run in, and who they are best suited to. Hope you enjoy. Let's start by talking through the midsole. The heel is 38mm high and the forefoot is 32mm high. Now, the main body of the midsole, so this top section, the yellow, and this bit of white here, and then actually down through into the bottom of the midsole, is made from Saucony's PBA-based Superfoam PWRRUN PB. Now, this is an incredibly soft foam that is also very bouncy. It should return around 88% energy return. Now, there's a second foam that wraps the whole way around the bottom of the midsole around that soft PWRRUN PB foam. Now that's Saucony's PWRRUN cushioning. So while that's still very cushioned material, it's slightly firmer than that PWRRUN PB foam. So that essentially acts as a frame around the really soft super foam and adds some stability and some extra structure to the midsole. However, that's not the only way the Hurricane offers more support, as these feature Saucony's center path technology. Now, the best way to think of this technology is trying to create support in a very natural way, using the geometry of the midsole to offer as much support as possible in a way that's going to work with your natural motion. So first of all, you can see how broad the midsole base is. It's incredibly wide. It's about 8% wider than the Triumph 22, and that makes the midsole inherently stable. Next, you can see this almost straight profile to the medial side of the midsole, again improving that underfoot stability. And then finally, the cushioning actually rises up at the sides. So instead of your feet sitting on top of the cushioning, they really sit down into the cushioning, and that creates a lot of support for your feet and helps guide your feet throughout the gait cycle. The men's weigh around 300 grams and the women's weigh around 280 grams. Now that's not actually very heavy at all for how much cushioning and support is on offer from the Hurricane. They also have about 25% more midsole volume than the Triumph and about 10% more midsole volume than the Guide. You can also see on the bottom how much outsole rubber there is, and that's one of the heaviest parts of the shoe. So yes, if you stripped back some of that outsole rubber, you could bring the weight down, but you would then compromise the durability of them. So that little bit of extra weight is not a bad thing, because it means that the Hurricanes are going to hopefully last a long time as well. The upper is a lightweight, seamless engineered mesh. Normally with a shoe like this, the more cushioned options, you tend to get quite plush tongues and quite plush padding around the heel counter. It's a little bit more stripped back with the Hurricane, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it delivers a slightly more performance orientated fit in that area, so you can get a really good lockdown around the midfoot and ankle. There's a really nice supportive heel counter in this part, and also details like this overlay here provide a little bit more support on the medial side of the upper. As you can probably tell from the bottom of these are the pair that I've been testing out. As you'd expect from a super foam, the midsole just feels unbelievably cushioned, unbelievably soft, and extremely bouncy. I thought the PWRRUN frame would potentially compromise some of that energy return that you would feel from the midsole, but that is not the case at all. Now, the challenge and the risk of making a midsole this broad is that it could very easily feel clumpy and slightly awkward to run in. But Saucony has absolutely nailed the design of this, and that's because it feels so stable under your feet, but at the same time feels incredibly natural and ultra fluid as you transition from heel to toe. The softness and the energy return from the cushioning is just so well suited to those slower to steady pace runs. It just takes so much stress off your muscles and off your legs. The fact that it returns so much energy almost makes you feel like you could do some slightly quicker paced running in them as well. And obviously, it goes without saying, these are absolutely perfect for those long distance runs. From an upper and a fit perspective, it's pretty hard to flaw these. They're going to suit a lot of runners, and that's because the toe box is accommodating and the midfoot and the heel counter offers really good lockdown. So they're going to suit a lot of foot shapes, and I would recommend choosing your normal running shoe size in the Hurricane 24. In comparison to some other Saucony models, they feel quite comparable to the fit of the Triumph 22, although I found that the lockdown in the ankle area is slightly better in comparison to the Ride 17. The lockdown in the ankle is considerably better. I find the Ride 17 quite loose around the ankle joint, whereas these hold you really securely. In terms of who the Hurricane are best suited to, due to the way the midsole is constructed, there's a lot of end uses for these. So for example, to start with, I normally run in neutral running shoes. So for example, I do a lot of miles in the Saucony Triumph 22. Well, most of my aerobic runs are done in those. However, I've been integrating the Hurricane into some specific runs. So the day after a hard training session, when my legs are feeling a bit tighter and a bit sorer than normal, I'm finding that the extra support and cushioning in the Hurricane is actually alleviating a little bit more of the stress than I would experience in other very cushioned neutral shoes, but ultimately don't offer the same level of support and help that the Hurricane are offering. So it's a great option for those recovery days. Equally, when you're heading out for those long, slow miles and you're potentially getting a bit fatigued at the end of the run, you might get a little bit more internal knee and hip rotation. That's when the extra support in the Hurricane really helps keep things in check and just reduces the stress and the strain you might feel in the latter stages of those longer workouts. So the best way to think of the cushioning is that it doesn't inhibit you when you don't need it, but when you do need that extra little bit of help and guidance, it's there to give you that support and control. So ultimately, they're amazing shoes on the days that you want as much comfort, help, and support as possible. Even though these will suit a lot of neutral runners, they are stability running shoes. The additional support in the midsole will reduce greater ranges of pronation and therefore will work for runners who have unstable feet and ankles. The holistic nature of the support in the midsole should also work well for runners who have a bit of instability at their knee and their hip area. So you might have a bit of excessive rotation at your knee joint and be experiencing some problems as a result of that. This is where the type of support that's in the Hurricane should work very well for you. Ultimately, even though these are very soft under the feet, they are incredibly stable to run in. And just on the topic of stability running shoes, because these feature a lot of Saucony's PWRRUN PB Superfoam, they're going to feel so much bouncier than pretty much every other stability running shoe that's out there. So if you're racing a half marathon or a marathon and you're looking for a bit of extra performance, but you're a bit worried about opting for a neutral running shoe that features a plate because you don't think it's going to offer enough support, the Hurricane could actually be a very good option for you, because yes, these are not going to offer as much energy return as something that features a full-length carbon fiber plate like the Endorphin Pro 4. However, they are going to offer a potential performance advantage over other stability shoes which just feature a slightly softer midsole foam that doesn't offer anywhere near the same amount of energy return. And the most logical comparison to the Hurricane are probably the Hoka Gaviota. And that's because they feature a thick midsole and the H-frame support that's in the Gaviota is quite comparable to the support that's in the Hurricane. However, these feel much softer and much bouncier under your feet than the Gaviota do. So if you're looking for that more responsive, firmer sensation with lots of protection, then the Gaviota are probably the way to go. However, if you are looking for that ultra soft and plush, bouncy underfoot experience, then the Hurricane are definitely the way to go. I think some people will also compare these to the Bondi, because even though the Bondi are neutral running shoes, they feature a broad base and the midsole walls wrap up, so they do have that extra bit of support. But again, even though the Bondi are considered to be very soft and very cushioned, these are very likely to feel much softer under your feet and will definitely feel a lot bouncier under your feet. That's probably the biggest difference, just the energy return on offer from these in comparison to what Hoka are offering in that space is pretty much night and day. Again, every runner is different, so that might not be what you're looking for, but if you want that ultra bouncy experience, then it's going to be pretty hard to beat these in that max cushioned kind of stable range. We could also compare these to the Asics Kayano, because the support in the Kayano works for a wide range of foot types and they offer a very soft and plush underfoot experience. But again, because the Hurricane has a super foam in the midsole, these are going to feel more energetic and bouncier under your feet. So overall, these deliver max cushioning and support for your daily miles, recovery runs, and long, slow efforts. Everyone's different, but we'd be pretty surprised if a lot of runners aren't seriously impressed by the new Hurricane. And in fact, we are going to go as far to say as these are our shoes of the year so far. And that's because so many brands are trying to deliver models within this space. Everyone's trying to create that ultra soft, plush, energetic, and stable feeling shoe. And as of yet, nobody has done it as well as what Saucony has with the Hurricane 24. And that brings me to the end of this episode. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions on the Hurricane 24 or anything about the tech, what they compare to, what they're best suited to, anything shoe related, just comment below and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. See you soon.